is, instead of going straight into the vCenter, going to the host, which is like each server. You've got three of them. I'm running vCenter here with one host anyway, because I use that as a test bed. So as you can see, root is always the username, as on that sheet. For this little bit of information, my password is different to yours. Right. Well, that's because I've removed the data store. Right now, the easiest way to look at it is that it's showing everything's on vCenter because everything's up at the moment. So it's a time slice, but it's not as big as the vCenter, whereas the vCenter is basically a lot bigger and manages the whole cluster. So it looks after all three servers. This is just an individual slice. This is a certain way. Say for instance you have an example and vCenter has turned itself off and you can't get into vCenter, log in via the root, and then you can actually, from there, you can actually power it up. Now, from that point of view, it gives you the idea of the host. It'll give my one, I've got DL360 Gen 9s anyway, 380 gig RAM, lots of storage. Then it works out easier. BIOS serial number, all the bits and pieces. It will give you the release date as well of the BIOS. So this is a P89, which is quite current. Then you've got into the manage area. Now, from this point, it gives you, by going to the host, you're seeing a cut down version of vCenter, where, as I was saying, vCenter manages all the hosts in one cluster. It looks after the each host itself, the cluster. vCenter also manages the data center as well, and all your data store warnings and everything like that. Whereas this one is purely specifically looking after one server. That's just the easiest way. You can go into manage the hardware. It will tell you what information you're using on different hardware and power management. Licenses as well. Now I've got Enterprise 6 on here. Services, what's running at the moment, what's not running at the moment, and what's stopped and started. So that's always a good way of doing things. Security and users. Now from this point of view, there's only going to be the root. The administrator is automatically put in there by the vCenter. Always in there, and also with the certificates, the host certificates are being managed by the vCenter server. So there's only some things you can and can't do, but it's a good way for you to see what's actually going on in the background. Right, so you can go into your storage area and everything like that and have a look at what adapters you've got running. I've got USB storage for a NAS, I've got SSDs for the normal size, persistent memory and devices. It's pretty straightforward really, to be quite honest. Networking, it's going to show what's here as well. Virtual switches, what I'm using at the moment. So I'm just using virtual switch 1, port group. I've got the management network, which is my port group, and the active network, which is the VM. It's also telling you, if you go back, it's also telling you, if I can find this, oh there we go, physical NICs of what you got available and what's actually being used and what's not. A lot of mine disabled, a lot of mine are not being kernel is what you're using on the management network, and any separate firewalls rules that you put in. Now all the firewall rules are going to be done by the vCenter, so I think you have to get your head around the fact that it's probably a little bit like Hyper-V, although it's managed on each machine. This looks after the whole cluster, so this is a backdoor way of getting into the system to put it into like maintenance mode and looking after things. Right, we'll kill that. I'll log out of that one, and we'll go straight into my appliance. Right. I saved mine anyway in there. Anyway, it's all in the certificate that I've got bought on here. Right. This is as far as up at the moment. It looks pretty similar, but there's more of it. There's more bits and pieces you can do. Similarly, all your virtual machines on the left. That's your main. That's your main host. There is your vCenter, which is here, and data center. Now, I'm looking at it from a single point, so it's only slightly different than I haven't got a cluster or anything like that working. You can go into monitor, and you can go into the actual host. Triggered alarms, all issues, events as well. What's gone on, who's logged in, who's logged out, any problems that it's worked out or anything like that. Security, health status as well. That's okay. And then go into configuration mode. Now the licensing, like I was saying before, there's my license. I got license 2 on here for the vCenter 6 on here. I've pretty much got the same as you anyway, but I've got DRS and fault tolerance. I don't know why they didn't buy DRS or fault tolerance. I know fault tolerance can be a bit resource hungry. Maybe that's why. I don't think they thought about it too much, to be honest. The way it was specified out on IOPS for the like MSA and for space, even with 20 VMs spaced over on 3 ESXs, is pretty light, considering you can probably run safely on there. If you had the storage, you could probably run 500-600 machines within the cluster easily, and that will be a multitude. You've got loads of memory, so whereas the host picks up the 384 memory they've got on each host, when they're combined together, the resource pool will look after the memory as like a 1 terabyte. So it's just a little bit easier. Now, also from the standard vCenter, which I'm sure you've played with quite a bit, you can do lots of different things. I mean, do some cool things. Right, new virtual machine. You can also go to, since I'll pick on one, power on. You can actually shut down. Let's pick one that's up there. I've got an FTP one. From the power, you can actually shut down and suspend the guest. Excuse me. Instead of actually shutting down a VM, so the VM will keep running, but it will do that. Snapshots. I can't remember if I got any in here. No, I haven't got any in there. Snapshots are okay, but I have said to them in the last LOD that really they should have more drive features. Damn, I haven't got it there. I think I deleted the damn thing anyway. But you'd have a list here of all the snapshots. Now, remember, snapshots are a slice of time working on that machine. It doesn't necessarily it's not classed as a backup. It's not classed as anything like that. It's something that purely ESX can actually restore and go forward. Now you can do that via the vCenter, or you can do it under the console of Power CLI, which is on that laptop as well. Alright, let's go back to the other ones. This one's just a basic walkthrough, and I'm going to be a bit more specific as I get into all the other ones, so you know. Permissions, as you know, it's administration. You'll probably, within that group, you've got Simon Bentley. Data centers, hey, I've only got one. Active tasks, you can configure and add more. Hosts and clusters, I've only got the one. You'll show 3 different machines and connected. VMs, what is running at the moment. It'll also give you all the information of like the IP address, use space, provision space. Now all your VMs for your Windows 10 provisioned at 500 gig doesn't necessarily mean it's going to use 500 gig. The resource pool I think starts at about 80 gig up to 500 gig. So as the data is being used, if it starts at 80, your base system, say for Windows 10 with all your bits and pieces on, is like, I don't know, 70 gig. If you did more updates for your software that's going on there, you're going to get to the stage where you're going to run up to about, say, 120 gig. It'll keep on increasing up to 500 gig, and it's like we said before, if you reduce the size of the data store for the virtual machine or increase it, you'll have to go to the Windows disk management tool and actually play around with that. It won't do it from that point of view. Now, you've got also the data stores, which is quite good. Now on here I've got quite a few. I've got an SSD, which is I call it Rocket, because that just uses a swap file. So basically it uses ESX swap file. Then I've got loads of other ones. If you go to browse a data store, right hand click, browse files, it will basically tell you what's in there. From that point of view, you can create subfolders, upload files, upload a folder, and you can download, copy and move all those sorts of bits and pieces, which is quite good actually. That becomes very useful. Then the last one, networking. Go to configure. Oh, it's catching up with itself. Configure. Right. These are all under here for configuring the data center. These are all the alarms you can set. Ones that are preset values, and these that can be all your new ones. Ones that have gone off, and then you can actually set extra alarms. So, for instance, that one there, host error. It gives you a brief description, and it's set to run. Now, they're pretty good, because you've got the customized disk version of ESX, which is the HP, the DL310s, 360 Gen 10s. It will monitor things like fan status, voltage. It will monitor all the bits like the iLO does. Not as well as the iLO, but it's very, very good. Now I've got vSAN running on this, so you ignore that because I've got loads and loads of extra bits and pieces. If you go into that and you go configure, right, that you can set. Now all yours are set to disable. This is a virtual machine startup and shutdown. If for instance there's two ways of doing it. Say the machine loses power, you can actually and you restore the power, you get it all back working, it'll automatically start after a certain amount of time. That can be useful, or you can set it to, if the machine is running and you have it enabled, if one of your guys or girls shuts down the virtual machine, and it shouldn't be shut down, I know you were thinking of doing a script as such, but the easiest way to do this, in some ways, to save you a little bit of time, is set it to enabled. That way they'll think they've shut the machine down, but it'll just restart again. So that's quite handy actually as well. But I'm sure you'll have a good play around with that. Resource pools. Now I've got a resource pool which is defined. Where is it? Resource pools configure. Nope. Resource pools defined. Well, I had one, but it's now disappeared. Right. Now, VMs, it'll allow you to everything. There's nothing in the resource pool of VMs. I've not moved any of these in there yet. But you can set a resource pool of like RAM usage, memory usage, hard disk usage, and how many processors you're going to have, how many cores. You can do that provisional. You could say 2 processors, two cores, but if it's not used that much, shut down both the cores and just use the two. If it's heavy on output or anything like that, it'll power up all the other cores. It's a fluctuating resource of things that are going on. Now, with all your ESXs, you won't have that problem with that because, I mean, I think you've got, was it 56 subcores on true processor servers with 384, which so you've got 100, 150 say virtual cores. You've got 6 main CPUs and you've got a terabyte of memory, and you've got at least 13-14 terabyte storage. I don't think you're gonna have much problem. Now there is certain things and bits and pieces that you have to check on here, and I always find it quite useful and everything like that. It's getting used to a lot of it. It really is. If you've never used it before, I can imagine it's very simple and very straightforward than Hyper-V. Can't be much more different, although it works on its own. That's why this caught on more than anything else. If you connect to the main vSphere client, you get all those storage, networks, content libraries, so your ISO's in there. At the moment, in your content library on your VM, if you ever need to build a new machine, you could build it from, deploy from a template, and it will say where is it, and you'll say it's in the content library and it's in the data center. The library for the content library is called TCS, and the main template, which is your Windows 10 machine, is called template. Click that and it'll go away and build and auto deploy as many as you like. Then it's just up to you to go into each one, and I know it was a pain in the arse doing the licensing and everything, but also seeing an IP address and setting up information for users. Global content lists can be quite useful. It's an individual time point of everything. It will tell you how many servers you've got, data centers, host clusters. It breaks down to anything. Like if I go into clusters, I've got none. But if I go into data stores, then it'll say I've got all these. There's about 3 or 4 different ways to go into the same thing, which is quite weird. Also got the menu, which is the same as the clicking on the left. I don't know why they've duplicated it. Shortcuts, event viewer, which shows everything that's going on. Your licensing, which we've covered and I spoke to you about, that shows everything. VMs and templates, I haven't got anything whatsoever. I don't think I've got anything anyway. Don't store. No. I tend to run it differently anyway. That's more for me because I use this as a sandbox environment as well for other bits and pieces. I've got loads of stuff running on here, as you can imagine. That's pretty much it for the web client and for the root. It's not very difficult. It's getting your head around it. The only problem I'd say is that if you're not really into VMware and you've used it quite a lot, because it doesn't create many problems, you don't go into it that much. So you'll tend to leave it, and then all of a sudden, then you'll go into it afterwards. That can be a bit of a problem because you forget how to do certain things and functions. All you need to remember is Google is your friend. Now, with regard to the VMware licensing you've got, that's all been registered, and you should have a mail very shortly. You'll have to let me know if you have, from VMware saying your account has been set up and all the licenses are there. It's Simon Bentley at Kinetic, and the licenses are in there. That comes up with your included number for your warranty, and also any support cases, and also it gives you access to critical events and critical paths of things you need to do, like any updates that go in there and come back. It's pretty straightforward, to be quite honest. It's just a case of getting used to things, I thought I'd make this one quite easier the first walk around, because you can actually see and you'll get used to it. It's like I said before, no matter if you have any problems or anything like that, um, text me, I'll give you a phone back, or send me a mail. I have got no problem with that at all. I tend to rely on things like that, and also I count you as a friend, not just someone I worked for. So I'm quite happy to help you out. Alright, I'll speak to you later and ready to do a few more. Okay, bye bye.